All right, Karen, go ahead. Take it away.
Ready?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Karen, and I welcome you to Passport 101. Well, I will be going over basic instructions before leaving this for earthly travel in order for you to get a passport. Now, before we get started, I ask that you get paper and pen or pencil because question and answer will be at the end of the presentation. But if you have the paper and pencil, you can write down your questions. Each one of the slides have titles and page numbers to make it easier when we go back to the question and answer period. Ready? Okay, obtaining a US passport. Who needs a passport? Everyone traveling outside of the US, except minors under the age of 16, they will only need birth certificate if traveling to Canada. Anyone entering a federal facility, military base, or nuclear power plant needs federally approved ID as of May 3rd, 2023. Any Pennsylvania resident flying anywhere needs federally approved ID as of May 3rd, 2003, and that ID would be the real ID. However, if you have a passport, you don't need the real ID unless you want to get one. Next slide. There are two passports. There's the passport book, which is valid for travel by any means to any international travel destination. The passport card is valid only for land or sea travel returning from Mexico, Canada, the Caribbean, and Bermuda. You may not need it going over, but you will need it coming back to go through the ports of entry. Now, the passport book and card validity for minors age 15 and under, the validity is 5 years. For those 16 and over, is valid for 10 years. The citizenship documentation that you will need, first we ask for the birth certificate, and it must show the following: full given name, date and place of birth, file date, registrar signature, raised, embossed, multicolored seal of registrar, and also the full names of the parents. As of 9/11/2001, that was instituted that all birth certificates must have parents' names on them. If you do not have one, we can help you to obtain one, or you can go online to Vital Check and fill out the information that they require. Now, the certificate of naturalization for those not born in the United States that do not have a birth certificate, the age 18 and over can present the certificate of naturalization. You can also use your previous passport book or card because you needed that information in order to get one. It had to be expired more than 5 years for a new application and less than 5 years for a renewal. Must not be damaged as the picture shown on the slide. Now, if you were born abroad to one parent that is a US citizen, you will need to submit one of the following: FS 240, Counselor Report of Birth Abroad, or DS 1350, Certification of Report of Birth Abroad, or the Certificate of Citizenship, or a previous US passport. Next slide. If you were born abroad but acquired citizenship through your parents' naturalization, you will need the certificate of citizenship that is acceptable alone, or all of the following: foreign birth certificate with official English translation, parents' certificates of naturalization, parents' marriage certificate with official English translation, and the green card or foreign passport with the I-551 stamp on it. Next slide. If the citizenship is for adopted children that are born in the United States, you'll need to bring certified copies of original birth certificate and the adoption decree showing the name change, or certified copy of birth certificate in the adoptive name. Now, if the citizenship is for children born abroad and adopted by parents that are US citizens, you'll need evidence of final adoption in English and green card or foreign passport with the I-551 stamp on it. Next slide, the identification documents that you'll need to bring with you. Age 18 and over, the primary IDs are as following, and you only need to submit one of them: valid driver's license, not permit, previous US passport or current foreign passport, naturalization certificate, US military or military dependent ID, or government employee ID are all acceptable primary IDs for those 18 and over. Now, those 18 and over, if you do not have the primary, the secondary IDs are acceptable, and you need to submit more than one of the following: state issued ID, work or industrial ID, school or college ID, or expired driver's license. The DS-71, which is the affidavit of identifying witness. That's used mainly for those between the ages of 18 and 26 with only a school or secondary ID. And the person that needs to fill that form out is a witness that is a US citizen who has known the applicant for at least 2 years, and the witness must also present acceptable ID. Now, IDs for parents of minors that are under 16, you need to submit one of the following: driver's license, US military ID, US government employee ID, US or current foreign passport, naturalization certificate, or the green card. Now, IDs for minors that are age 16 or 17, you'll need to bring either the primary or the secondary ID and the ID of one parent. Or if you do not have either one of those IDs, then we need the ID of both the parents, but the applicant will still sign the form. Now, parental consent is needed for minors under age 16. It's normally a 2-parent consent, and they come in person with the minors. Or 1-parent consent is acceptable if one parent's name is listed on the birth certificate, or you bring the notarized DS-3053 statement of consent. And please look over that form before you bring it, because once you have it here, no changes can be made since it is notarized. Or sole custody guardianship court order, you would bring that, or you'd bring the death certificate of one of the parents. Now, the parental consent for minors age 16 and 17, you'll need one parent's consent, and the ID of the applicant. Or if the applicant has no ID, you need the consent of both parents, and the applicant will still sign the form. Now, if there are name changes and there's printing errors on the passport, you'll need to fill out a DS 5504, which is a passport name change, and bring that with you. Or if the errors are on the birth certificate, you'll bring the birth certificate along with a baptismal certificate or hospital birth record or early school record or the DS-10 birth affidavit. Now, if the name changes are due to marriage, use your married name or hyphenated surname on your ID. Or bring certified marriage certificate from the government, not the church. Now, if the name changes are due to resumption of a previous name, like the maiden name, the birth name needs to be on the ID and on the application for citizenship evidence. Or if it's a previous married name that you are resuming, then the previous name should be on the application and bring certified divorce decree, marriage certificate, or court order, or evidence of exclusive use of the name for 5 years. Now, if the name changes are incidental, they are acceptable with the ID in that current name. For instance, changing the spelling, but not the sound. Joanne, Joanne, Smith, Smith. Or adding a given name. You're born John Johnson, but you acquired John Robert Johnson at a later date. Or if you're dropping the given name, Mary Ann Jones no longer wants the Ann, and so she goes by Mary Jones. Or if you're changing the order of the given names, like John Robert Smith now wants to be known by Robert John Smith. Also, you can use common nicknames like Jim for James or Sue for Susan. Continued, you can use initials for a given name. For instance, John Francis Riley now goes by John F. Riley, or Francis Scott Fitzgerald goes by F.S. Fitzgerald. However, if you want to reverse it from F.S. Fitzgerald back to Francis Scott Fitzgerald, you'll need to bring a court order or public record showing the use of the full name. Or if translation of a given name, like Maria would be Mary, or Enrique would be Henry, they're all acceptable as long as it's on your ID. Now to the photos that you will also need to. They are 2 inches by 2 inches, full frontal view, and your shoulders will be showing in the photo. Now for the photos, no uniforms, hats, headgear, headband, or eyeglasses can be worn in the photos, or the masks, which we are now wearing also. Must be taken within the past 6 months. Now, we here at the library can do your photos for $10 for each person, or you can go to a place that does passports photos, like a CVS or Walgreens, and bring them with you. And you can see the website travel.state.gov for other requirements. Now, the application form for a new passport is the DS-11. And you'll pay attention to the 2 blue areas, they're important. The other form would be the renewal form, that is the DS 82. And you see that form is blue, so you'll know the difference between each form. Now, for the renewal form, applicant was 16 or over when the passport was issued can use this form. Or the passport and the passport book card can only be submitted if it's undamaged. The passport had to be issued less than 15 years ago. Not limited validity. What that means is there are those who get a passport for a short period of time, about a year or two, because of a special trip that they're going on. But they would have to start all over with the new application. They would not be able to use the renewal. The applicant uses the same name or the name changed by marriage or court order to be able to use the renewal. And it must be mailed in by the applicant. We do not mail them. However, all applications for passports need the photo. So you can come to us for the photo, or you can go to the other places I mentioned earlier. Now, the processing time, it is the same for all ages, whether it's a renewal or a new passport. And it is for routine, 12 to 18 weeks. And for expedite, it is 6 to 12 weeks. If you're traveling in 2 weeks or less, you must call the National Passport Information Center to schedule an appointment at the U.S. Customs House in Philadelphia. And the number is on the screen, and you're going to want to write this down: 877-487-2778. Once again, if you're traveling in 2 weeks or less, you must call the National Passport Information Center to schedule an appointment at the U.S. Customs House in Philadelphia, 877-487-2778. Now for the fees, the most important part. Fees for the passport book. For those age 16 and over, it is $110 for routine, or to expedite, it's an additional $60, bringing the total to $170, plus the separate $35 library execution fee. Now, for those age 15 and under, it is $80 for routine, or to expedite, it's an additional $60, bringing the total to $140, plus the separate $35 library execution fee. Everybody who wants to expedite, no matter what age, the cost is $60, as well as the $35 library execution fee. Now, for the passport card, the fees are for ages 16 and over, $30 for routine, or to expedite, it's an additional $60, bringing the total to $90, plus the separate $35 library execution fee. For those age 15 and under, the cost is $15 for routine, or to expedite, it's an additional $60, bringing the total to $75, plus the separate $35 library execution fee. Now, for the fees for a 1 to 2 day delivery from the passport agency back to the applicant, it would be an additional $17.56. Now, that would eliminate some of that processing time that I mentioned earlier if you want them to send your passport back to you within the 1 to 2 day delivery. And those fees would be paid to the U.S. Department of State, and they only accept checks or money orders, no starter checks. For the photos and the library execution fee, we accept cash, check, money order, credit, or debit card. We're flexible. Now, the only official website is travel.state.gov. Any other website may not give you the correct information, so be sure to write this down. The only official website, travel.state.gov. Now, for the library application acceptance hours, we accept applications by appointment only. You would call 610-933-3013 and choose option 4. You can also come in person and make an appointment. We accept them between the hours of 10 and 7, Monday through Thursdays, on Fridays between 10 and 5, and Saturdays between 10 and 2. Okay. And now it is question and answer time. But before we go to the question and answer time, I want to go back to the DS-11 application, which is for a new book, because there are common errors that we make on the application. And I want to point them out to you to try to eliminate or avoid any rejection from the passport agency. So if you would just hold on while I get to that form. All right, the beginning pages, there are several pages which are just the instructions. But we're going to go down to the first page of the application itself. Now at the top, you see application for US passport. Below is highlighted information that is very important. It is not highlighted on the regular form, but I want to point it out. It says use black ink only. If you make an error, you are to complete a new form and do not correct. Okay, so you want to be careful about any errors that you make. These forms can be downloaded from the website, filled out on the website and printed out, or you can print out a blank form and fill it out yourself, go over and make sure you have everything correct before you bring it in. Now, the next section where you would check whether you want a passport book, card, or both. If you want a book, just check the book. If you want a card, just check the card. If you want both, just check both. Because if you check all of them, then that would be an error and you'd have to complete a new form. Now, below that, people ask, why would I need a passport card? It says where it's highlighted that the US passport card is not valid for international air travel. It is still international because it's a passport, but it's not valid for air. So you cannot use a passport card to fly. Some people don't want to fly. So you can get a boat, you can drive, you can walk any way you want except for air travel, okay? Then I filled out the form generically, Jane Doe, address, be sure to put the social security number on there. Then when you come to the blue section where it says stop, it is only to be filled out by the authorized agent. So you do not fill out that area and do not staple your photo to the form. We will do that. Okay? And then on the second page, you will fill your name again at the top. And then on the right, where it has the date of birth, you see their format that they are requesting. It should be 2 digits / 2 digits / and then 4 digits. Okay? Then when you come to the next section, which is the parental information, everyone puts information in for their parents, whether they are deceased or alive, especially if their names are on the birth certificate. However, in the United States, Usually, both parents are not born with the same last name. So you want to pay attention where it's highlighted for the mother's last name. The instructions above say last name at parent's birth or maiden name. So be sure to put her birth or maiden name in that box. Okay? Then when you come down to 13 and 14, if you have minors that are in school, it is okay to put student in the box for number 13. It's still an occupation, they just don't get paid for it. And then number 14, they're asking for employer or the name of the school. Do not use abbreviation. If you need 2 lines, that is okay. Just make it legible. And then number 19, where it says permanent address. Highlighted, you see it's for if your residence is different from the mailing address that you put on the front of the application. They do not want both the same address on the front and on 19. Normally, this would be used when someone would come in with a driver's license that has a different address on it because they moved and did not have a chance to go to the DMV and get the yellow address change form. Here is where you would put that address that's on the driver's license. They will not mail it to this address, but they will not accept it if they have 2 different addresses and it's not listed here. Okay? And then the last one is number 20, which is your emergency contact. Highlighted instructions say, provide information of a person not traveling with you to be contacted in the event of emergency. Now, this does not mean just for this present trip you're going on. This means for the whole time that you have the book. And I understand parents want to put their names down for their children, and that is okay. However, you just need to know that if, God forbid, something were to happen when you're traveling together, they will not contact any other emergency number. Okay? Hope that's understandable. Now let's go back for questions and answers. Do we have any questions? You can unmute yourself if you have any questions. If not,
You can type in the chat as well if you need to.
you can use the chat feature if you have questions, or you can unmute yourself and ask the questions. Looks like you understood everything in the presentation. And so we hope to see you at some point to get a passport, whether it's a renewal or it's a new one or a photo. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Karen. Bye-bye now.